Travis Wayne Goodsell, another year. So, we'll start it off with a video. I still have to do cutting my hair and laundry. I need to cut my hair before I do the laundry, or at least the clothes I'm wearing laundry part, because otherwise, yeah. So, as I was born on St. Patrick's Day, 17th of March, I'm well aware of St. Patrick. And it's interesting that it was the Druids who told the tales of St. Patrick, who became St. Patrick many centuries later. And their tales of St. Patrick were not quite historical. They were using the historical context of St. Patrick to prophesy, which is kind of fascinating, because it's those Druids who became the Goodsells, the sun gods, the high priests of the Druids. And so that's kind of cool that my ancestors were involved in St. Patrick, of whose celebration I was born on. And so, having been born and raised in the Mormon Church, the church utilizes their altered version of the 1838 history of the church that Joseph Smith originally wrote, as the Joseph Smith papers are sort of being corrected on church history. Sort of. They're not doing a straight, here's what Joseph Smith said, here's what the documents literally say. They sort of put corrections still, that you have to click on the hyperlink to see what the origin was. Pisses me off. Royal Skousen is involved in this work. And because Joseph's history was altered, many other things were altered, and Joseph Smith was attributed to a number of scriptures as well as a number of doctrines, depending on which branch off. And I'm from the Brighamite branch off. That's what I was not really educated in, because we're the only true branch off. We're the successors, the true successors of Joseph Smith, as the church tells us we are. And when you do a study on the others who form their own religions branching off from Joseph Smith, you realize each and every one of them had a claim that they were the true branch off, the true successors. And some of them had documentation, whether forged or not, that Joseph Smith had assigned them to be the successors. Others, it was orally. Oh, Joseph Smith told me that my son would be the successor. And then others went so far as to not only have a letter, but have found treasure plates and translated them. James Strang. But he then blew it when he got everybody onto that island in Michigan, or off Michigan, and then said, hey, let's start polygamy. So that was the end of his religion and him. as it was clear, Joseph Smith did not practice polygamy, despite the claims of the Brighamite branch-off followers who insisted that, oh yeah, he was practicing it in secret. Oh yeah, he had sex with me. This is his son. What about the husband? What? What do you mean? It's not mine? Yeah, well, DNA proved them wrong. Proved them all liars. And that's what happens when you have people who have to alter history in order to justify their existence. And so, as a result, the Brighamite Church is the worst at creating what should be termed the myth of Joseph Smith. That none of it's real. We can't trust any of it from the church because they've been lying, deceiving, and covering up the truth. I mean, it took them all this time to finally say, oh, yeah, he was looking in a looking in a hat with a rock. It was 2 rocks, not one, and that one that you've polished and shined was not the one. They just cannot come out fully with the truth for us. And by so doing, as missionaries, we go around telling everybody the myth of Joseph Smith. And if you're familiar, the Joseph Smith papers are also revealing, you probably have to click on the links, that he never called the angel Moroni. He called him Joseph, Nephi. And so then when you read in the Book of Mormon, you have all these tales and scientific fields, people in the sciences, geology, anthropology, archaeology, and other specialties in dealing with American society, ancient American societies. The Book of Mormon doesn't mix. It doesn't match. European animals rather than indigenous animals that are known and established to have been in America. I mean, yeah, the Kulams and the Kumams, Joseph Smith threw that in, but without knowing what they are, nonetheless, there were too many European animals put in the Americas. And then when you do linguistics says that Joseph Smith isn't even the author, let alone a translator. And that it was Sidney Rigdon instead. But the church cannot accept that, because they don't know how to justify the church's existence if the full truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God, comes out. They need to be pardoned by Trump for their federal felony crimes so that they can then come out and confess to all the truth that they've been covering up. As we're going to be finding out this year, all the truth about Trump from all those he pardoned. And it's going to be horrifying when we find out, but I digress. So, what needs to be understood concerning Mormonism is not saying, oh, well, everything is false, we should dismiss it all. because Joseph Smith was a real person. He was a real boy, not a Pinocchio. And so the question is, well, what really happened? And nobody wants to find out. Whether it's Mormons who, no, I don't want to know the truth. Church is true. I follow the living prophet. No. Or ex-Mormons who say, Joseph Smith did what? I'm out. Are you sure? Are you sure that's him who did it? That's what is frustrating, and I had to make yet another reply to a person who commented overnight that ex-Mormons were deceived as Mormons, and they found out something about claims about Joseph Smith that they disapproved of, and so they're out. They're now ex-Mormons. And Mormons, of course, have abused ex-Mormons and blah, blah, blah. Which, if you have to abuse somebody who wants to leave your organization, then obviously you're a part of the true church, right? Because that's what Christ would do. Follow me or die. It just doesn't make any sense how people can justify abuse and call it from God. Nonetheless, but those claims that offended ex-Mormons now are not the truth, because Brigham Young is the one claiming Joseph Smith had informed him he was supposed to be the leader, as he twists and reinterpreted Doctrine and Covenants section 107 verse 22. Sustaining vote? Where are you getting that from in this passage? You mean loyalty oath. But, yeah, there is no vote. And so how do I get both sides, Mormons and ex-Mormons, to understand that Brigham Young created this whole myth of Joseph Smith? Oh yeah, Joseph Smith was practicing polygamy in secret. Oh, the temple endowment that I'm writing was from Joseph Smith. The magic underwear, oh, Joseph Smith, he was wicked. That's why he was murdered, because he wasn't wearing his garments 24/7. The loyalty oaths, the death penalties, polygamy, section 132. If you go back in the Joseph Smith papers, check out section 131. Check out what's missing from the Brighamite 131. What? He was talking to one man and one woman about how they are going to be exalted? And he also had a chapter on monogamy, denouncing polygamy? What? How did he come up with section 132 then? Where did this originate from? Oh, the year after Brigham Young was thrown in jail by one of his exes for non-custodial payment, or alimony payment, I guess it was. God. So, yeah, when you read over section 132 and you put it into the context of the real history that occurred during the time frame in which it was put into Brigham's Doctrine and Covenants, you start going, wait a minute. Now, Emma was not approached. Yeah. And so then you have Brigham Young assuming the keys of Elijah to do sealings, and assuming the keys of Moses to be the president of the church, even though Nelson has revealed to us that they claim the leadership of the church through the keys of Peter, James, and John, which was just for missionary work. And that's a part of how you identify myths, is that there are things that are just so not according to truth that something else is going on. So with St. Patrick, for example, he didn't chase snakes out of Ireland. They were already chased out of Ireland long before St. Patrick was even there. But again, the Druids were using St. Patrick to tell a prophecy instead. And so thus the Mormon Church, Brigham's Church, have redesigned the history of Joseph Smith to support the Brighamite Church. And so the whole myth is to support and sustain Brigham as the true successor. And we can identify that in all of the many errors about Joseph Smith, about the history of the church, about the coming forth of the Book of Mormon. And once we can identify the true history from the myth, then we can recognize the evil that is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here in Salt Lake Valley. Until then, the current church will continue to deceive Mormons and get ex-Mormons out to reinforce to the Mormons who stay that, oh, well, they were just weak in the faith. They're the ones who are wrong. They're the ones who are deceived. You know, it's okay to commit polygamy, as a commenter yesterday tried to pull on me. You know, he tried to comment on somebody else's comment and say that he had read, pondered, and prayed, and that Joseph Smith's polygamy, or Nelson's polygamy. Nelson's returning to polygamy, guys. This is not a myth. This is not a joke. He literally is. If you go to the temple, if you are aware of the changes he made in 2019, because it's now 2021, I can't say last year anymore. And so the video that I did was about his reversing some of those changes because of me and the lawsuit that I have against the church. But yeah, it's not a coincidence that the Salt Lake Temple will be finished in 2024. And you can't understand the big picture of what they're plotting without knowing the true history of Joseph Smith and the rise of the church and the purpose of the Book of Mormon. Because if you believe that Joseph Smith is as the church says, then the Book of Mormon is an actual history of the indigenous people, rather than ex-Mormons who say, oh, well, it's a fraud, well, yeah, I don't want anything to do with this anymore then. But nobody seeks to find out the linguistics behind it, put it all together with the archaeological, the murder mystery. Remember, Joseph Smith was assassinated along with his brother Hiram. We don't know who that murderer is. I do. I've been trying to tell you. But, nobody does what crime investigators do for regular murders. Nobody's applying it to Joseph Smith anymore. I did. It was real quick and easy. Give you a hint. Hiram Smith was supposedly shot right here through the door. There's There's a hole in the door, dear Liza, dear Liza. However, would have struck them right about here. That should give you a clue that something's afoul in the Brighamite Church's claims as to what happened in Carthage jail. And again, it all supports the myth that the Brighamite Church has to maintain, that it was a mob who murdered Joseph Smith. And that Willard Richards and John Taylor were miraculously saved, though John Taylor was struck several times, one of which was in the watch. And who shot him? Oh, the mob that Joseph Smith chased out of the jail with his 6-shooter? Okay. And then we get, I had my neighbor. Oh yeah, you can magic bullets. Yeah. What? They're on the second floor, and Hiram was in the room, John Taylor was in the room, and yet somehow they get shot this way as the windows are this way. What? Which means they had to shoot up, and then the bullet would have to then ricochet in and around. I mean, this is more of a myth than the JFK assassination single bullet theory. So yeah, it's those little things that people say, no, that defies the laws of physics. That defies the laws of the scientific fields in which you are claiming took place. Just like Mormon doctrine. Mormon doctrine is based on the scientific field of agriculture. We will liken the word unto a seed. Science. And yet Mormons have thrown out the science to reconstruct a whole new faith, contrary to scriptures and Joseph Smith. But look at all the myths they can create.